my name is Pascal. Today we are going to talk about how to use a power rack. If you want to know more on how to build your own home gym, then please check out the dedicated playlist I have on this channel or follow the links in the description box below. This is for beginners and I will just go through a basic squat and bench press setup so that you don't feel all confused in your own gym when you're starting out, hopefully somewhere after this pandemic. So there are two main components on each power rack that you will find in the wild, and one are the Jacobs, which you see here, and the other one are the Safeties, which you see here. Now, my personal rack is a Rogue RM4, but you will find these two things applied all over the world in most gyms. So the Jacobs are for what the barbell will rest on, and the Safeties are what will protect you when you fail a squat or a bench press, so that you won't fold in half or be trapped under the barbell. So let's move on to each component. First element to use a power rack are the Jacobs. So this is a very simple model, but they more or less all function the same with a few exceptions which I will go through. So if you want to adjust the Jacob, just get it to 90 degrees to the upright and then you can pull it out. And what you can see then is they usually have one long pin to actually attach to the rack, and then this kind of little angle to then actually stay in place. So once you got it out, you just adjust it for your height and then push it back in and let it drop. And that's it. So that's how you adjust the Jacobs in height for yourself, and how you can then do either the bench press or the rack by adjusting the height of the barbell itself. So now this is how the whole story looks when you have a barbell actually placed in the Jacob itself. You see, you usually have a bit of spiel. Now again, depending on the Jacob vendor, some are thicker, some are thinner, and some give you more, some give you less spiel. Some even have rollers on them so that the barbell will actually always end up in the same place for you for your setup, so that it's not slightly to this side or slightly to that side. But those are the more fancy ones that you usually don't find in regular commercial gyms. And this is what it looks like when you've actually have it set up. So what I will now show you from the side for the squat itself is how high you actually should go with the setup for the squat setup. So I will get under the bar now, and then you will see how I end up, right? So I'm getting under the bar, then I'm getting to parallel here, and how this should be is that I really just have to do a small pop of the Jacobs to get into my walk back, which is then 3 steps out from here, right? So, and then when you go back, also always set it up in a way that you go back in forwards, because that is a lot more secure than backwards, and then you're done. So if you do it any deeper and you already have to do a half squat to get the barbell out, you're not doing yourself any favors. If you get it too high so that you actually have to kind of tilt yourself a little to get the barbell back into place, but under very heavy loads, that can actually get a bit dangerous. So get a setup where you can really just drop the barbell back into the Jacobs by just leaning a bit forward, and that you just have to pop at the hips to get it out of the Jacobs. So that is how I like my squat rack setup. Of course, there are always individual preferences, and depending on how big you are and how tall you are, but this is how you set up a power rack for your squat. Second element of a power rack and how to use it are the Safeties, which you see behind me. So these are actually flip down Safeties. You find these on hammer strength racks or any other rack that has invested a bit more into safety. But what you usually find in commercial gyms are actually safety pins. So the safety pins usually feed in from the front, Just make sure that you really have them actually parallel to the floor, because sometimes it can happen that you either have them slightly tilted upwards or downwards, and if you then drop the weight on them, it can travel and actually, you know, basically come after you, and you don't want the weight to travel into unforeseen directions after you dropped it, because if you dropped it, you're probably in a panic or gas mode anyway. So make your life as easy as possible as you can. So my safeties, I usually like to get them a bit lower so that I can then drop the weight by leaning a bit forward onto the safeties themselves. At least that is the setup for squat, and I will now show you how that would work in the wild. So here we are at the deepest position of the squat, and if I was to fail, then I can just fail forward and crawl out of the setup itself, you know, rather than just dumping it backwards and I don't know where actually the barbell will go. That is at least how I like to do it, because that is for me the securest way, because if I fail, I usually fail quite safe. However, of course, there are also people who just want to be able to drop it anywhere behind them, fair enough. But I wouldn't recommend that, because that wrecks your equipment, and that will also probably wreck yourself if this goes a bit arseways. So try to fail in a controlled manner like I just showed here, and of course at best avoid it at all costs. For the bench press, the main mechanics remain the same. You will have the J-cups, you set them up at a certain height. You also want to just pop the weight out, and you want to be able to just lean a bit backwards and then to re-rack the weight. And what you also want to take care of is that if you're arching during the bench press, that the safety pins are a bit lower than your chest, so that you can then get out of the arch and have the barbell resting on the safety pins while you crawl out from underneath or just push it away from you. If you get too high, then you won't get the full range of motion, and if you get too low, of course, you will be pinned under the barbell. So this all needs a bit of experimenting, because also the holes which you see here behind me are always a bit different depending on the rack. So experiment with the empty barbell based on the principles that I've lined out here, and then find your setup for years to come in the rack that you will be squatting and benching the most. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and tell your friends about my channel. And if you have any questions on how to set up your power rack for your exercises, then just pop them in the comments below and I will give you a detailed answer once I get around to it. Bye bye.